citizens of the internet. Hope you're doing well. I have had this terrible headache today, and I know what's causing it. It's because I'm trying to wean myself off of coffee, caffeine addiction. It's strong, and so I'm having like a withdrawal headache. I'll drink green tea or whatever, but it's such a routine for me, this coffee drinking. And I love coffee, and I know that it's not super bad for you, especially if you don't put a lot of stuff in it. But I've had blood pressure issues. I'm getting older, so I gotta be more cognizant of health stuff, right? And coffee, just as much as I love it, it messes with my digestive system, gives me higher blood pressure. I think that's the biggest byproduct. And then if I put a lot of sugar, recently I was putting oat milk in it, and then I realized how terrible seed oils are for you, which are heavy in those fake milks. So I switched back to just regular cream, and milk has all kinds of hormones and crap in it. And I was doing organic coffee. I was doing all kinds of different coffees, and I'm like real picky about it too. Like I only buy the whole bean coffee, the organic blends, and then grind it myself. And anyway, it's a whole struggle. So, I'm not going to stop drinking coffee completely. I'm just going to stop drinking it every day. Because I also have this thing that I was raised with where it's like the clean your plate thing. My parents are always like, "Oh, you better clean your plate," and so I can't make a pot of coffee and like let any of it go to waste. I have to finish it, and it's like I'm drinking a whole pot of coffee every morning by myself, and it's like my heart's about to explode, and I'm getting diabetes, and you know. So, um, it's a Thursday night right now. I'd like to get this up tomorrow, Friday, for the weekend. And what I try to do is, I'm not always going to be consistent on this, but I try to cover stuff that a lot of my other favorite YouTubes are not covering as heavy. I'll still touch on stuff like the Tucker Carlson thing, but like I watch like Jimmy Dore, and I watch Do Dissidents, and I watch RBN, Savvy, all those guys, all those people are doing great work. And I don't want to repeat a lot of the stuff that they're saying, if that makes sense. So sometimes if I have a good take on something that a lot of the left YouTubers are talking about, I will talk about it. But for the most part, I try to come with some different stuff for y'all, so you're not just getting the same content over and over from everybody. So check this out. First thing I wanted to jump into today is it was Press Freedom Week, or Press Freedom Day. And actually, I lied. A lot of YouTubers that I follow cover this. Jimmy covered it. Do Dissidents covered it. But I have a personal spin on it. So first off, let's watch this clip real quick. And
whether you've been able to talk.
Excuse us, we can't use this day without calling for the freedom of Julian Assange. We bind
Make it easy. Make it easy.
they cut the sound.
So we're here to celebrate freedom of expression, and we just experienced it. Let me continue, Mr. Secretary, to ask you about Evan Gershkovich and your efforts to get him free. Well, in particular, I'm curious whether
So two things.
to talk.
First, Medea Benjamin, respect. She's been doing this for a long time, and it's probably better that someone like her is doing it, a little petite woman, because if it was like a large tattooed man like myself, I look a lot more threatening, and I'd probably get shot at or tased or whatever. So props to her for putting herself out there and doing this, because this one in particular is so good, because the irony of them silencing someone on Freedom of the Press Day, and just I don't know if you noticed, but the audience, even, they're like zombies. They don't even budge. Everyone just sits there quietly, and to his credit, I will give Blinken some credit. He's like, be easy on him, be easy on him. He's got to do good PR. And these guys, I don't think that they're bad people at their. I mean, this gets dicey, because I really, Blinken's demeanor seems good. He seems like a nice dude. I really think I watched a documentary on Dick Cheney a few years ago, and I really think these people believe that what they're doing is, for the good of humanity. And I really think that, like I said, I watched this documentary a few years ago about Dick Cheney. And even though I disagree with Dick Cheney and I was a Iraq war protester, it's hard to watch that inside look at who he is and what he's doing and not go, wow, I respect the guy. He has a vision. I may not agree with his vision, but you got to respect the gusto it takes to work your way up through the government and make your vision a reality. And so when I look at these people like Blinken, it's like, I don't hate the guy. I don't think he's an evil person. I think that, I don't think what he's doing is right now. But he seems like a nice enough guy, and I don't have the information that he has. And, there's a lot of moving parts to this stuff. That said, Medea is a hard ass. And the point that she and her friend were making about Julian Assange is a very salient one, especially when you consider the level of censorship that's going on right now. So another thing I wanted to talk about is I am not a big TikTok person. I'm a little bit older, obviously. So maybe I am not up to speed with a lot of what's going on here. But I have been starting to do some TikTok stuff, and I'm just doing kind of like more short form videos than I'm doing here on YouTube. But they're very censorious, I've noticed, at TikTok. And that's probably because it's the platform that the most people are on. And I think in this case, what happened, and let me kind of just tell you what happened. You can probably read it, but basically I made a video and I hashtag stand with Ukraine with the flag and everything. And I said, if you really stand with Ukraine, you want to support a peaceful end to the war there, because you don't want Ukrainians to keep dying. And that just seems like a rational point to make. Well, that particular post, it got more visibility than anything I've ever done. Almost 1,000 views, which is small on TikTok. I don't have a great body or good boobs though, so there is that. But it kind of went viral, and I had like 150 comments on this thing, and there was a bunch of people just like, oh, Putin doesn't want peace, and all kinds of stuff. But TikTok basically removed my post for controlled substances, alcohol and tobacco. What I'm guessing is, I didn't say on the, it's this. And someone complained. Someone flagged my post, and that's the excuse that they used to take it down. So it just got me thinking, people, I don't think Elon Musk is beyond reproach, and I don't think that he's perfect, but the stuff that he's doing with Twitter is important, and it's night and day. You know, I noticed this difference a long time ago because I used to be a Facebook user, and Facebook got terrible real fast when COVID hit, real fast. It was bad before. So full disclosure, I had a meme page, and it was like a leftist meme page, and you know, I was a Bernie guy, so I was posting stuff that was to the left of the Democratic Party, and that's where the problem started. And then when COVID hit, and you know, anything that was outside of that Democratic Party narrative was just not cool. People would, I mean, I got canceled by a lot of people that I used to really respect, that just lost their ability to think critically when COVID came. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight that because Elon's really doing the public service with Twitter, and it's not perfect. You know, Scott Ritter should be on it. Alex Jones should be on it. A lot of people that should be allowed on Twitter aren't allowed on there yet. But it's a night and day because I say the same stuff I said on TikTok on Twitter all the time, and I've never been censored. I've never been blocked. You know, I don't have a huge following on Twitter, but I've noticed a massive difference. And cheers to Elon Musk for that, because really, I mean, again, the Iraq war is what engaged me in politics. And I'm seeing all the same patterns here, you know, and it's not, it gets simplified to this, well, either you're with us or you're with Putin, just like it was with the Iraq war, was you're with us or you're with the terrorists. And it's not that simple. You know, the world doesn't work. There's a lot of gray area in the world, and not everything's black and white. And people don't understand that. You know, a lot of people don't know anything about Ukraine other than Putin invaded it at the beginning of the year, or was it last year, the beginning of 2022. And they don't know the history of the country. They don't know that it used to be part of Russia. They don't know about NATO and NATO expansion and how NATO should have been disbanded after World War II, but it's literally exists to fight Russia. And instead of disbanding it, Russia wanted to be a part of NATO at one point. I don't know if you know that, but there's a whole history here. So anyway, not going to go down that road, but I just, in light of National Censorship Day or National Free Press Day, wow, I really need to do a piece. I'm going to do a piece on the White House press correspondence dinner too, because what a laugh that was. But I'll have a better angle, a little more of, not a better angle, but a more unique angle than I think some of the other YouTubers might have had with that. So one of the reasons I wanted to highlight this censorship stuff is because of that war in Ukraine. And the people that are, really running that war and want it to keep going, a lot of the people in the comments that are repeating the propaganda about Putin and why we can't have peace talks. Like, that's the thing that blows me away the most, is like, oh, you're just gonna, what if Putin invaded America? Would you just give him South Carolina or something? It's like, no, first of all, Putin didn't invade America. Second of all, you don't know the history here. Third of all, you don't even know what Putin's asking for. He as far as I know, all they're asking for is autonomy for the regions that border Russia, the Donbass. They don't even want it to be part of Russia. They just want those areas to be able to have their own elections and be independent of the main part of Ukraine, which has been bombing them for years because they have pro-Russian sentiment. They border the Russian country. So, and Ukraine is a Russian-speaking country. So, anyway, we don't need to get into that. Listen to Dave Smith. Dave Smith has probably some of the best, most intelligent, most well-read takes on Ukraine that I've heard from any podcaster. But I wanted to show you this video that your boy Matt Orfala put together, because this explains why the Ukraine war is so important.
Weapons they need. They need to have Stingers and the Javelins, but they also need anti-aircraft capabilities. They need anti-missile capabilities. They need anti-tank capabilities. There's a lot of weapon systems, the weapons they need. We have to bring these weapons to get the weapons to the Ukrainians, move these weapon systems, to deliver those weapon systems, make sure that the Ukrainians are getting the weapons with anti-missile capabilities, Patriot missiles, the S-300s, the S-400s, weapon systems, additional aircraft, as many weapons as necessary to provide weapons, of sophisticated weapons, whatever possible weapons can be provided.
Undisclosed conflict of interest. He works at a firm whose clients include Raytheon, the second largest military contractors in the world.
The most important thing right now is the weapons.
We should arm the Ukrainians, providing weapons, providing supplies, defenses to arm weapons with ammunition. We have to simply do more, do something more. To do more, we will have to do more. More direct involvement of some kind will be inevitable. More arms, more and more pressure for us to do more and more by way of supplying weapons, arms.
Undisclosed conflict of interest. He's on the board of directors at Lockheed Martin, the largest military contractor in the world.
Arm the Ukrainians, anti-tank, get them armed drones. We need to make sure that we get them air defense systems and ammunition, lots of ammunition. Whatever we can get them, we're going to have to continue to arm the Ukrainians.
Undisclosed conflict of interest. She's the chair of the BAE Systems Board of Directors.
And by the way, I've been always for us to update and modernize our nuclear arsenal. That's important.
We need to continue to flow the weapon. They need missiles, anything they ask for. We need to get the weapon system, heavy weapons. We got to be giving them anti-ship missiles, combat jets, good fighter, ammo, howitzers, linear firepower, everything. Tanks, the javelin, get those weapon systems. The S-300 is a good start, but boy, have we got better kit than that to offer, frankly. Patriot, THAAD, additional offensive capability. These are systems, missile defense systems. Order now. The weapon systems, shopping list, we've got a lot of systems. Weapon system, additional combat power, those weapons, missiles, weapons.
Undisclosed conflict of interest. He's an advisory board member of a firm with Raytheon on its client list.
So you get the idea. And Matt Orfalea doing the job that Jon Stewart used to do. That's the kind of stuff you used to see on the Daily Show, where they would walk you through all those, like super cuts of the different media outlets supporting the war and saying the same crap over and over again, kind of just playing that propaganda violin for y'all. It's crazy times. And what's really crazy is I feel like the propaganda now is so much more intense because now everyone's on their phone all the time. And so it's more targeted, it's more kind of, catered to your interests, and it's everywhere. And it's difficult to think critically when you're being bombarded like that from people you trust. And a lot of people who I used to think were very intelligent, critical thinking people are way knee deep into the Ukraine war, and they know nothing outside of what they're being served up via U.S. State Department propaganda through, shows like channels like MSNBC, CNN. It all trickles down. They all get their talking points from Voice of America or from the core media conglomerate. I forget the name of it for the U.S. But anything related to the military all comes directly from the state. There is literally that's why those people cheered at the Pentagon when Tucker Carlson was let go, because he was literally the only person on mainstream TV saying anything critical whatsoever about this. Everyone else is acting like Zelensky's Winston Churchill, the dude who's secretly buying diesel fuel from Russia with the money we're sending him and skimming it. That's Seymour Hersh. I didn't say that. Seymour Hersh is a very well-respected reporter. So if you don't believe that, I question your sanity or your level of propaganda, how propagandized you've been. What level you're like a 10. at that point. If you think Seymour Hersh is the blogger who talks trash. So speaking of black bloggers who talk trash, Theo Vaughn is a huge he has a hot podcast I really dig. And I've really dug Theo Vaughn for a long time just as a comedian. And if you've never seen, he does This Is Not Happening. I'll link it in the description. It's so good. It's one of the I've watched it like probably 20 times now. It's like a 20-minute bit where he tells this story about him going to be on the Opie and Anthony show in New York and meeting this cab driver that takes him to get cocaine. And it's just the way he tells the story. The story itself is hilarious, but after that he quit doing drugs supposedly. But it's a great story, and so I've always really dug Theo Vaughn. But about a year ago, he had current presidential candidate RFK Jr. on his show, and I haven't even watched the whole thing yet, to be honest. But there was a part right at the beginning where they talked about agency capture that I thought was very, very good. And I mean, Michael Tracy's right. Robert Kennedy's voice is tough to listen to sometimes. It's tough. His voice is messed up. But that doesn't take away from, you get used to it, and it doesn't take away from the validity of what he's saying, the content of his speaking. I mean, he was an environmental lawyer for a long time, so he fought these agencies from an environmental standpoint. So agency capture, if you know what that means, it's basically means that the government agencies that are designed to regulate industry get infiltrated by the industry they're regulating and become kind of partners with that industry instead of unbiased kind of regulators of the industry saying like, hey, you can't do that. Once the leader of Shell Oil takes you, the CEO of Shell Oil takes you on a private getaway to, the Bahamas or whatever, you're going to think a lot more carefully about regulating his industry, or that's not going to happen next year. And I'm using that as, I just pulled that obviously out from under my beanie here, but it's a good analogy. Look at what's going on with Clarence Thomas. And now they're trying to say Sotomayor should have recused herself from some cases because she ruled on a case that the publisher of her book was involved in. I mean, that's a huge conflict of interest, of course. I mean, I don't think it's as bad as what Thomas was doing. Thomas was like going to barbecues and on trips with these guys, whereas Sotomayor, like, she published a book through them and then should have recused herself from that case, obviously, but it's not quite the same. Anyway, let's watch this clip of your boy Theo Vaughn and RFK. The more I hear RFK talk, the more I like him. So it's going to be hard to take him seriously if he runs in the Democratic Party, but I do like the guy a lot, and I like what he has to say. So let's listen.
I've known Fauci for a long time. Okay, and I also have a peculiar insight into the phenomena of agency.
This is key right here.
That is the dynamic by which environmental agencies and public health agencies become sock puppets of the industries they're supposed to regulate. It happens with every agency. So
everything.
It happens with all of them, whether it's the SEC or the FDA or the ACC. Any of the three-letter agencies. Ultimately, over time, the industry figures out how to infiltrate them, how to control the senators and the congressmen that write their budgets, how to get control of that agency because it's so important for their profit ambitions.
Right.
And so I probably brought over 500 lawsuits as an environmental lawyer, mainly against polluters who are discharging into the environment, into the air, water, whatever. But probably during the 38 years that I was doing that, probably 20% of my lawsuits were against the EPA or the state environmental agencies for issuing these kind of sweetheart illegal permits.
Because they get compromised also, you're saying?
Because they get compromised. So I was used to that dynamic.
Right. That's kind of hard to navigate.
Yeah, seeing the agency that's supposed to be my friend, but is actually my enemy, you know, on these environmental issues. Oh, I was accustomed to that, but that dynamic is particularly acute. It's really on steroids in the public health agencies because there are these unprecedented entanglements, financial entanglements. For example, FDA gets 45% of its annual budget from pharmaceutical companies. So they're really, you know, there's really no, it's kind of a seamless subsidiary of the industry. And it's really, it's agency capture on steroids.
So the FDA is funded mostly by pharmaceutical companies.
About half of their money comes from pharmaceutical companies. And that's because we passed a law in the 90s that allowed, actually in the early 2000s, that allows, it's called fast track approval. So the drug companies were complaining that, you know, these drugs take 10 years to get approved. And a lot of particularly the Republicans on Capitol Hill who want the agencies to be more industry friendly, they said there ought to be a process where the industry can come in and pay to get a very, very quick approval. And so now
that seems dirty business.
It is dirty business. There's a kind of a rational reason for it. As the agency said, we simply don't have enough personnel to quickly process these applications. So Congress said, okay, well, we're going to get the industry to give you the money to hire the people to process it. But really what happens is the agency is now being paid to do its job by the industry, and they become partners, and they're no longer a regulatory agency. They're really, you know, their regulatory mission gets subsumed by these commercial and mercantile, you know, forces.
Yeah, business, big business.
Yeah,
that's big business. And like I said, it happened.
So I thought that was just a really key point that he made there, because you got to remember, this is a guy who spent, you know, years fighting environmental legislations or for environmental legislations. You know, I don't even know the details of what his career looks like, but he did that long before he was ever involved in, you know, anything related to health. And so what I think is interesting about this and the whole COVID thing is a lot of people on the left lost their minds so bad with COVID. You know, I look at people like Abby Martin, for example, who I think is amazing and does amazing work on so many levels. I mean, I watched her ask Pelosi at a climate change conference about the military, and you know, her Pelosi like stumbled, you know, because the military is one of the biggest polluters, the US military. I mean, we've got bases all over the place. We got planes and jeeps and tanks and everything all over the place. You know, aircraft carriers, you name it. So that's the biggest source of pollution in the world. And no, it's exempt from climate law. If, you know, so if climate's such a serious problem, you know, then Abby Martin will turn around and be a COVIDian and not recognize agency capture, like RFK is talking about here, of the health industry, which is, it's been so obvious to me for a long time. But I will tell you this really quick anecdotal story before we move on. I had a doctor who was an old school doctor. He was like, this was probably 10, 15 years ago at this point, but he was an older guy who literally had like cigar stains in his mustache, like white mustache, white coat, brown pants, like old school doctor. And I remember sitting in his office one day, and this woman came in, pharmaceutical sales lady with, rolling a suitcase with wheels on it. And I heard, I'm sitting in the front office listening to them talk. And he literally said to her, look, I'm not going to recommend this to patients unless they need it. She's trying to like cajole him to recommend these drugs that she had to patients. And he was telling her flat out, he's like, no, that's not how I work. I'm a doctor. I'm not going to recommend drugs to people because you want me to. I'm going to recommend drugs to people because they need them. The guy had ethics, which I think is lost in a lot of industries these days. But anyway, point being is I was wise to industry capture of medicine for a long time. When hearing that conversation, I went, oh wow, that's insane. I can't believe this. So yeah, like I said, I really like everything I've heard RFK say recently. He seems really good on a lot of stuff, and I hope that he makes some traction. It's pretty amazing that he's already supposedly polling at like 20% in the presidential race, and it's still a year and a half out. So I came across this guy by watching Russell Brand. His name is Callie Means, and he recently called out Michelle Obama in this thread. So I wanted to read it to you. Yesterday, Michelle Obama announced she is partnering with a junk food company to sell sugar water to kids. We must speak plainly. This is cynical cash grab. This is a cynical cash grab. Kids don't need safer cigarettes and they don't need safer sugar water. They need leadership. Here's the facts. So I'm not going to read all of this, but Mrs. Obama is partnered with Juggernaut Capital Partners, a private company that specializes in celebrity-driven junk food brands and pharmaceutical products. Juggernaut recently helped The Rock launch Zoa Energy, full of chemicals and sugar. The pitch to Mrs. Obama was obvious and simple. We will make you a billionaire using a tried and true formula of addicting kids to sugar and celebrity marketing. Now, this kind of stuff really hits for me because I'm in my 40s, and all my life I kind of just ate whatever I wanted, and I never really thought twice about it because I always exercise. I have a pretty good exercise regimen, and I always just thought, you know what, I can do that because I exercise. But it wasn't until recent years where I went, wow, like what you eat is so important, and we are being poisoned on a lot of levels. I was talking to my brother-in-law the other night about how Mountain Dew has brominated vegetable oil in it. I love Mountain Dew, but it's got bromine in it. Like it's poisonous. Like that's a poisonous chemical, and it's all about money. That's really what it comes down to. So this guy's kind of calling out Michelle Obama in this thread for, post-presidential world, trying to make some cash and off of her celebrity status as a ex-president, ex-first lady. And he's not wrong to do this. I do think he's a little bit harsh because here's why. To defend Michelle, because I try to be, if I'm fair, if anything, right? I like the Obamas, and I'm a big fan of Michelle, and I think even the fact that she has put obesity and health consciousness into the mainstream conversation is a beautiful thing, and I think she deserves a lot of credit for that. So one of the things that Homeboy said is that she's pushing sugar water, but I follow Michelle on Instagram, and I happened to catch her post, and I read it, and I thought maybe it's just about the money or whatever, but I thought she framed it in a very eloquent and sensible way. And here's the part that I think really stuck out to me that I wanted to highlight for Callie. Right here, she says, make no mistake, water and milk are the best options for your kids, and kids shouldn't be regularly drinking anything other than water or milk until they're at least 5 years old. So one of his beefs was that this stuff can be drank by kids after they're 2 years of age. I mean, she's not saying that. So I thought that right here, she's saying, but once kids become school aged, drinking only water and milk isn't just isn't a reality. Nearly 2/3 of young people are consuming sugary drinks on any given day. So, that part of it gets a little dicey where it's like, okay, but I give Michelle credit for saying, hey, um, kids under 5 should only be drinking water and milk. But then once they get to that a certain age, they're going to be drinking sugary beverages like this. I think a lot of it too has to do with that. Like, it's okay to drink a Coke if you eat a salad in the day, It's okay to, eat some ice cream at night as long as you're had, a good dinner or whatever. There's balance with everything. I've noticed this about my eating habits where it's like if you're gonna eat sugar, you want to eat sugar in is its most natural form possible. So a smoothie is a great thing to cure that sugar craving, because even though fruits have sugar in them, there's other in parts of fruit, what does Dr. Berg call it, phytonutrients, that help you to better digest that sugar. Whereas if you just drink a Coca-Cola, it's just like raw chemicals and garbage sugar and calories, and it's delicious though. But I think it's okay to drink a Coke or two if you have a salad and a chunk of steak and have like a really healthy nutritional dinner. What we don't want to do is drink Coke all day every day and crystallize your urinary tract. No one wants a crystallized urinary tract. That's gotta hurt people. Oh, kidney stone. Anyway, good on Michelle for saying what she said, and I think Callie is in the right place to point this stuff out. He's got a very cynical attitude about it. The nefarious thing, Michelle Obama's strategy is branding sugar, water, 6 grams as some kind of positive step for health. It's shameful that Ms. Obama's website actually cites the USDA sugar guidance to say it is recommended for children 2 years and up to consume added sugar. In black and white, Mrs. Obama is saying it's okay for 2-year-olds to have added sugar. See, I don't think she's saying that though, buddy. Because right here she's saying, make no mistake, water and milk are best options for kids. And kids shouldn't be regularly drinking anything other than water or milk until they're at least 5 years old. And she's right. So good on Michelle for, being real with it when it comes to that stuff. So the next thing I wanted to kind of talk about is this kid that was murdered on the subway in New York. I'm sure you've heard about it by now. And I thought Due Dissidents, I was watching Due Dissidents earlier, and they're New Yorkers, so they have a real take, I think, as people who have ridden the subway directly for a long time. But let me show you this tweet that really broke my heart. This is Jordan Neely. On Monday, he was lynched on the NYC subway. He started telling passengers he was fed up being hungry and thirsty and having no place to rest. He began to shout in his frustration and threw his jacket on the floor. An ex-Marine then murdered him. On Monday, Jordan Neely was on the northbound F train, telling passengers he was hungry and having no place to sleep at night. Passengers ignored him. He began shouting, and in his frustration, threw his jacket on the floor. He was no threat. So, whether he was a threat or not, what is with this whole attitude that it's okay for someone to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner? I thought we had kind of reached the conclusion with the George Floyd thing that it's not okay to just choke someone to death in public. And it's a racial thing too. And Tim Pool posted something about it, AOC being insane for calling it a murder. I mean, Tim, imagine the roles are reversed and it's a young white teenager whose dad lost his business from COVID, who's frustrated on the train and doesn't happen to have a firearm even, and a black ex-Marine chokes him to death. Are you going to be behind that? Are you going to be cool with that guy? See, that's the thing that's where some of these more conservative leaning dudes lose me, because this is about humanity and human beings, and that's my guiding principle is human life. I care about people, living people, not fetuses, you dumb fucks. Anyway, you're not a human being till you're in my phone book. What's a phone book? Holy shit. Till you're in my phone, in my contacts list. That's a Bill Hicks joke, right? He's like, you're not a human till you're in my phone book. Anyway, that's a whole other sidebar. But the Due Dissidence guys who ride the train quite a bit told some stories, and Keaton told a story about a homeless guy like spitting on his face, and him not reacting to it. I mean, Keaton, I've had people spit in my face too, not on the subway, but in my case, I was a kid and I was fucking around, and it was like a carload of like dudes who yeah, anyway, that's a whole other story. We've all had that moment. We've all bit off more than we could chew. In Keaton's case, he was just on the subway, and the whole point of what he was talking about is, as someone who has ridden the subway quite a bit, this man had plenty of opportunities to say, are we good, bro? We good? You want to get off now? And let the guy up. Instead, he chose to lay there and choke the guy to death, and why? After he passed out, he's still choking him. That's when you kill someone, when they're not voluntarily breathing anymore, and you're crushing their windpipe. And what a coward, there's nothing. It's so frustrating to me how much humanity we've lost, and we can see this on our phones. We're all watching this crap, and the guy, I don't know. No, I don't think anyone had footage. I think maybe someone did have footage. The guy was throwing a tantrum, whatever. He wasn't a threat. He doesn't need to be killed. And it's, the guy could have ended up being a hero had he just restrained the dude and made him get off at the next stop. And, instead, he's a murderer now. And people are still trying to get behind this like it's okay. No, it's not okay. And if we live in a society that values justice, this guy will go to jail for murder, just like the cop that killed George Floyd did. There's no need to murder that person. And after what we just experienced with the COVID pandemic, and so many people lost their homes and their jobs and their businesses, and so now what you're saying is any of those people who are out on the streets now because of circumstances beyond their control are worthy of being murdered? What the hell is wrong with you? What kind of a? I thought we were a Christian nation, What part of the Bible was Jesus like, oh, if people are homeless, make sure they get murdered? They're not worth shit. Let a guy strangle them on a subway train or shoot him with your AR. I value consistency. I value adherence to values and principles. And that's why a lot of these Christian people that run around, being pious in their religion, the Matt Walsh types, frankly, and who act like they're on some religious pedestal and they can judge other people's lives by their own religious standards, they're always the people who are the biggest hypocrites. They're always the people who are like, oh, pro-life, I'm so pro-life. I'm like, oh, fuck that guy. He was homeless. He deserved what he got. Yeah, real pro-life of you, bro. You're and that's why it's so easy to call these people out for what they're doing, which is trying to control women's bodies and make decisions, because that level of consistency doesn't carry over with the vaccine thing, where I think there's an argument to be made for both liberals and conservatives in comparing vaccine mandates and abortion. It's bodily autonomy. Until a baby is born, a mother is a huge part of that baby's life. It's a part of its mother. And you have no business telling that mother whether or not she needs to carry that baby to term. It's a part of her. If shit's gonna kill her, she should be able to abort the baby. If she was raped, she should. It's none of your fucking business. Just like it's none of anyone else's fucking business if you take a vaccine or not. And it upset me to no end that liberals didn't make that argument. Instead, they got wrapped up by the captured, agency and had to get up on their soapboxes and acted like, oh, you stupid Trumpers, you're less than me. Get your vaccine and be good for humanity like I am. I'm a good person and you're not. That's how snotty and stupid people sounded during that. And now, all this data is coming out to show how wrong they were. And none of them will atone. None of them will apologize for their mistake, their gigantic, ignorant, smugnorant mistakes. So I'm just about done ranting for the night. But I wanted to end on that consistency note by revisiting our good friend AOC. How has AOC been, you ask? Well, let's check in. Tia here makes an interesting point. She says, after sitting on her hands for 2 years, AOC introduces a bill to ban Congress from trading and owning stocks. Now that the Dems have no power to pass this bill, you should definitely be excited, because Congress will do the right thing and vote against itself. Please send $27. Democracy is at risk. Oh my God. Marie here says, it's a Republican bill that exposed her as trash. I mean, that's been exposed for a long time. She signed on because she knows Republicans are going to get it passed, and she couldn't leave her name off and be exposed for being the right of the GOP. So it's probably, so it's a House bill probably that the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Matt Gaetzes are passing. And Matt Gaetz, honestly, superstar of Congress right now, trying to do military drawdowns. Again, I don't agree with Matt Gaetz on everything, but wow, of all the people I could talk to about in Congress, he's the only one doing anything exciting. Well, I don't know. A lot of those freshmen, I like Thomas Massey a lot too. I might not agree with him on his gun takes completely, but I do like Thomas Massey as well. So we're gonna go back to Matt Orfalea, the genius of all genius super cutters, and just watch this little piece he put together on AOC for a minute as we close out, just to remember the hope and promise that AOC offered.
Courage. Start bringing the ruckus on the Democratic Party. That is our job. It's great that everyone thinks these issues are important. We need to make them urgent. This country has only ever changed for the better by groups of people that were willing to put everything on the line for a better future. That's how we got the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement. That's how we got the labor movement, queer rights and marriage equality. It didn't happen by people playing it safe. We have to give it all we got. Don't people realize that the most powerful position you can be in is when you are not materially attached to a position of power? If you're a one-term Congress member, so what? You can make 10 years worth of change in one term if you're not afraid. Democratic Party does not do more unless it is pushed. So we need to push them. And they don't like it. I think I annoy them, but but that is our job. That's our job. All of Washington is not incentivized, on the whole, not incentivized to work in actually expediting guaranteed healthcare in the United States. Now, does that mean it's not going to happen? Absolutely not, because mass movement organizing can force it to happen. Force it to happen. Do not trust any political party.
Do not trust any political party. I agree. It sucks because now there are a bunch of other progressives in Congress that AOC could rally with as a bloc and really get some bangers through. You know, you got a whole kind of progressive caucus built up now, and you know, maybe in a couple of years they'll do some incrementally good stuff like their forebears, like they always do. We can only increase, and if you read into how lobbying works, this is how they always win. These companies, you know, the healthcare industry, the health industry at large, the pharmaceutical industry, military industry, they argue for incrementalism. So it's like, oh, we can't just stop everything now. Like, we can't just switch to universal healthcare. We got to make a slow change because we don't want to shock the system. And that's exactly, you know, how they keep the status quo in place. Because by the time, you know, the next 4 years rolls around, it's like, oh, we got to slow down a little bit and just pull back. And, you know, it keeps getting slower and slower and slower. And we just get more and more incrementalism. And it's been incrementalism since the 60s, you know? They've been making this lesser of two evils argument for voting since the 60s. Hunter S. Thompson had a bit about it in his Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail book about voting for the lesser of two evils. And this was in the 1960s. So it's still going on. The last election was, well, Biden sucks, but what are you going to do? Vote for Trump? They're still doing it, you know. This is the most important election of our lifetime. Anyway, I need to shut up and go to bed. I'm not going to bed for a while, to be honest. Let's be honest. Anyway, thank you for listening. Really love interacting with y'all, and you know, don't hesitate to leave a comment. I'm gonna start wiring up some other videos at the end here. But definitely appreciate you, and take care of yourselves out there.